Welcome to Shop Squad's Now You Know, a podcast that brings you compelling conversations about today's technical training resources. For information, visit shopsquadonline.com. Welcome back to NGK's Shop Squad Now You Know podcast. I'm Doug Kaufman, and once again, I'm excited to be joined by Megan Meyer from Randy Meyer Racing. Megan, thanks for taking time away from your team celebrations. How does it feel to be a team that has clinched its fourth NHRA World Championship in 5 years? That's pretty amazing stuff.
It really is, and I would have to go back and look at the history books to see if there is a team that has, been able to win 4 out of 5 championships. So I know there are a couple teams out there that have won multiple championships, but I'd have to go back and look to see how, consecutive they are. But I'm just so proud of our team. Our guys have worked so hard in the off season and all during this year. We've had a bunch of ups and down times this season. And, the points lead has been going back and forth and back and forth. And so we weren't exactly sure when it could happen. But before we did clinch it, they won the race before that, which was in Charlotte, which is a track that we are very successful at, thankfully. And so when they won that race, it bumped them back into first place, and they were able to get enough points this past weekend in Dallas to actually clinch the championship. And so proud of them. Everybody from Julie to my dad to my mom to everybody on the team. There's so many different hands that touch these cars, and so we're gonna have another celebration party at the end of this year and invite all of our guys out and just really thank them for their time and their dedication to our team and to our family. Yeah. And what an accomplishment. And what's also cool is this is the third female to win a championship, and it's all with our team as well. So I've won 2, my sister won 1, and now we have Julie with her championship.
Yeah, I was going to ask you: is it an individual points championship? Is it a team points championship? Did Julie win? Is she the champ? How does that work with
Yes.
NHRA?
So with NHRA, the points stick with the driver. So Julie is the champion. She gets all the points. And that allows drivers to be able to switch teams if that would ever need to happen. It really does not happen that often or at all, especially in our class, the top alcohol dragster. But Julie is a rental driver. And so what that means is she is just someone that pays to drive the car, basically. So she rents out the car, the crew, the parts, the truck, the trailer, everything to get to the racetrack and actually race the car. She is renting all of it out. She does not own it. She is not an employee or on payroll for us. She's renting it out from us, and that's how we've always ran our program for over 20 years. And we have a handful of different rental drivers on our team this year, and we're always adding on new ones each year.
So that's got to be testament to your team's success. Your dad's skill as an engine builder and a car builder, and the crew chiefs and all of that stuff. Pretty amazing. But it's also got to be somewhat daunting for you as a team to know, well, if someone else, a big team, comes along and offers Julie the opportunity, there could be some changes, and you might have to get back in the seat, right?
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, that is definitely a possibility. And she has big dreams of going to Top Fuel, and she has mentioned that this could be her last year with us as the team. She's been on our team for 7-8 years, which is the longest that we've had as a rental driver. Usually it's just 1 or 2 years and then they move on. But she's been part of our family for quite a few years now, and she's really grown over the years as a driver. And that, one thing that we that can be something we struggle with is that not every person drives the same. So we teach them the same procedure of how to drive these cars, especially when, it comes to the clutch, because the clutch can make all the difference on whether it's going to be a good run or a bad run. So we don't want to get the clutch too hot. And that's where we really have to train people with our cars, because, even if they did come from another dragster team, they might have learned a different way. So we really prefer drivers that are green, so that way we can teach them our way of how to drive our cars. And Julie's one of those that did come to us that was green. She'd never driven a top alcohol dragster before. And so we've been able to really train her over the years on, not just like what to do in certain situations, but to make sure you can drive and replicate and do the exact same procedure, like down to the millisecond on every single run, because that just makes my dad's job as the tuner and engine builder, makes his job easier, because it's not a different variable he's got to be thinking about if she does the exact same thing every time.
Right. And obviously, you want to encourage Julie's dreams of further success. Looking back, you mentioned the looking back in the championship books. If you look back in the championship book, you're going to find your name back in those pages as well, back in the history. Let's go back to when you started your career. Junior dragsters, right? Back in the old days, but you were at the track long before that. What made you want to go racing?
So I've been around drag racing my entire life. And really, the junior dragster program didn't become very big until, I want to say, maybe 5-10 years before I got into it. So, but really what got me into it is my older cousins. And so my Uncle Joe, who's unfortunately passed away now, he is the one who got my dad started in drag racing back in the 70s. And he has 2 sons and a daughter who are all older than me. And so I got to grow up watching them race junior dragsters at our local track in Kansas City. And so back then, the minimum age to start was 8 years old. Now it's 5 years old. They can start testing, but not competing yet. And so when my little sister Rachel turned 8, she's 2 years younger than me. So she was 8 and I was 10. My parents, I remember this like exactly. They took a rollback tow truck, because my parents sell tow trucks. So they took a rollback tow truck to a family that was in the Kansas City area. They had 2 sons that were just aging out because the maximum age is 18. Mm-hmm. And they could not stick with it. And so we purchased not only 2 junior dragsters, but their fire suits, their starter. I remember we just had like buckets of parts and oil and like anything you would need to run a junior dragster. We got all of it. And I was so excited. I wore the fire suit all the way home. And I remember this like to this day. I even remember like we went to the public restroom road stop, and I remember walking in and wearing the fire suit to go to the restroom. And so I was just, ever since day one, I've just been so passionate about drag racing. I could not wait to get started. And my very first race, I got second place, and I was just so excited. And I absolutely loved racing junior dragsters at our track in Kansas City. We had such a great community there of families and racers. And what's awesome is when my parents were gone racing, because my dad didn't want to slow down what he was doing, so he was still racing top alcohol dragster. And if there was a points race that weekend, well, either my mom would have to stay home and she would drive the dually and the trailer and take us to the track, or we'd have to find someone else's parents to drive the truck and trailer and take us to the track and help us run the cars. And thankfully, there were families out there that were so helpful and generous with us. Even to this day, they'll still help us out if we need it. And we've been able to keep those relationships very close to us, which is so special. The Kansas City track did close down in 2011, unfortunately, due to city ordinance and noise rules and all that type of stuff. But we have so many great memories there, and I just had the best time ever racing my junior dragster there with my little sister and with my cousins and with everybody else that was there part of my journey.
Yeah. Did you see it while you were doing it as kind of a means to an end, or was it just something to do because it was fun? Did you ever look at it and go, you know what, I want to do this the rest of my life?
For me, yes. For my sister, it was more of just a social activity to do. And so it's so funny. I remember to this day going to the track. I would be the one polishing all of my wheels, and my sister would be out in the field playing football with all the other kids. So I've always been so passionate about it. And I was very successful with it as well. I won 2 track championships there and was able to win multiple races. And for me, one thing that our dad really instilled into us is if you want to go racing, you have to put the work into it. And so he was too busy with what he was doing. He didn't have time to take care of our cars. So we had to change the oil. We had to, change our clutch belts. We had to change out our NGK spark plug that we would have to do like maybe once or twice a year. And so we really had to figure out how to do it all on our own. And then as soon as I turned 16, I got the keys to the truck and trailer, and I'd have to go. They would do test and tune Friday night, and then you could do a race Saturday and do a second race Sunday. Thankfully, the track was only an hour away from our house, so we could, leave the rig there, drive home for the night, and then come back the next day for the next race. But yeah, I really feel like if, one thing that separates drivers from the best to ones that are just okay or that are good, is the amount of effort that you put into it. And it really, this applies to anything, whether it's school or work or a sport or hobby that you're really passionate about. The more time and energy that you put into it, the better you are going to perform. And, my dad really made us work for it, and it paid off. And, whether we wanted to do it or not, I remember so many times we were frustrated because it'd be Friday night, or our friends are all going to hang out, going to the bowling alley or to the movie theaters or something, and we were in the race shop working instead of hanging out with our friends, and missed out on birthday parties and stuff like that. But it was the stepping stones to get us to where we are now. And now my sister and I are both world champions. And in any type of motorsport, how many sisters are champions? Like that's just so cool to be able to say and have those bragging rights.
Right. And thinking back on that, when you were out there polishing your wheels and making sure there weren't fingerprints on the roll bars, and you cleaned things up with your car, you were basically recognizing the value of of the image at the time, whether you knew it or not. And that's something I know that you've carried with you to this day, really.
Yes. One thing that my dad also made me do growing up was he actually taught me how to use a camera, which my dad to this day does not know how to use a camera. He barely knows how to use a cell phone. But he taught me how to take pictures and then take that picture, download it onto a computer, and send it in an email to our sponsors and to our partners. And so whether it was a picture of the car on the track or maybe a winner circle picture, or I would do this all the time, is I would get banners from each of our partners I would hang the banner up on the side of our trailer, put my car in front, like have my new trophy and take a picture, and then change out the banner, put up the NGK Spark Plugs banner, take the picture, take that one down, put up the Lucas Oil banner, take the picture, and then I'd send each one to each partner. And this was before social media.
Mm-hmm.
I was 10, 11, 12 years old at this time, and email was the only way how we could communicate. And I remember like writing up race reports and press releases, and it was just, super cheesy now going back and looking at that and reading those because I have some of them saved. But it really taught me the basics of marketing and sponsorship. And I don't know if my dad knew he was really teaching me how to do that or not. But yeah, it's just another thing, like you said, really care about the value and the appearance. I always made sure like the car was clean, and even still to this day, when I do drive, I make sure I clean the car and like get every dust, oil, grime, grease, get all that off of there, because I want to have a very clean and professional looking car when I do go down the track. And, I think sponsors do really appreciate that. And so, yeah, it's just something I learned as a kid that's stuck with me to this day.
Well, obviously what you've learned, on the track translated well to business. Now, when you stepped down from competitive racing, you were at the top of the game. Talk about that. How big of a decision was it for you to step away when you did?
It was huge, but I will say it was an easy decision to make. So 2015 was when I graduated from college with a degree in graphic design, which again stemmed from all that stuff that I just talked about. But 2016 was when I made my debut. I got runner up again, just like with Junior Dragster, at my first race. And then I won my second NHRA race, which was amazing. And just from the start, we had a really successful career with me as the driver in Top Alcohol Dragster. And NGK Spark Plugs was one of the partners that we've had that was with my dad for years, but it was just a product only partnership. And so they would supply us with all the spark plugs that we needed to run the cars. But when I was driving and I was doing a lot with social media appearances, I would do interviews, and all that type of stuff that I just love to do, all the marketing side of it. NGK really noticed, and they stepped up, and they were my title sponsor for 3 years. And those 3 years were my most successful years in Top Alcohol Dragster. We won 2 world championships in 19 and 20. I set the record for the fastest time, which is 5.090 seconds in the quarter mile, which is just a little over 285 miles per hour. And also became the winningest female and also first female champion. And so we were at the top. We had a very successful career. It was 5 years that I was in Top Alcohol Dragster, but there's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot of traveling, a lot of stress. And unfortunately, when you are at the top, there are some teams that do get a little jealous, and they might not talk great about you. And so there is some jealousy and politics that goes into it, which happens in any sport naturally. But everything was just kind of taking a toll on me. I also just got engaged. And so my fiance and I talked about it and decided, because I was so stressed out with everything going on. I was traveling so much. I was only seeing him about maybe 6 months out of the whole year. So 50% of the time I was gone drag racing, and he stayed home. He didn't really come to many of my races because of work, but also he races too, and he does dirt bikes. And so on the weekends, he'd be on his bike racing, and I'd be on the other side of the country drag racing. And so, with that, we decided that, I really needed to settle down and focus on our marriage and all that type of stuff. And so At the end of 2019, after we won the first championship, I had a meeting with NGK and our partners and told them that I was going to step down at the end of the 2020 season. Now, this was before I ever heard of pandemic and COVID and all that type of stuff, which I don't know, I guess helped us, but also hurt us at the same time. And so I remember I flew into our first national event, which is the Gator Nationals down in Gainesville, Florida. I got there Thursday morning, and then Thursday afternoon, the announcers on the PA saying, everybody has to leave. You have to get off the property tonight. We are in quarantine. Everybody has to go home.
So that must have been the end of March 2020, right? Like maybe March 13th, 7th, 18th, something like that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because the Gator Nationals always is around spring break time. So yes, it was in March. And yeah, we had absolutely no idea this was going to happen. And, obviously we were there still setting up our awning, getting the whole pit set up. And now I've just got to take it all back down and head home. So we did, and it was a few months before we were able to go to the track again. So really started off the season unsure of what was going to happen. We still didn't know which races we were going to do, which tracks were going to be open. And little by little, NHRA started doing races. So they'd start out with smaller ones with the sportsman guys, and then they kind of worked their way up to the big national events. And it was very different because, we had to stay 6 feet apart, but yet still try to work on a car together. And everybody had to wear masks on. And it was just very different. But thankfully, we did a good job when we were at the track. We were able to win a couple races, get the points lead. And in September, when it was the U.S. Nationals, that's when I made the public announcement that I was going to step down from Top Alcohol Dragster and officially retire from the NHRA to really focus on just family, but also to get a break from the traveling because it was a lot. And so we did have the points lead. I was able to win the race that weekend. And then we did end up winning the championship. It came down to the second to last race. So it was Vegas, which is our next race, and came down to that race. And I had to win the race to win the championship, but I also had to defeat the guy that was in second place. And we ended up making it to the final round together. And here's what makes it even more suspenseful. He blew up his motor the round before, and he was like, I'm done. I don't have a spare. It's end of the season. Everybody's going through all their spare parts and motors. And he's like, I don't have any other parts. There was another team that had not the exact same, but similar motor. They literally took the motor out of their car, put it in his car. Totally different setup with the wiring and fuel lines and oil and all that type of stuff. So they had to figure out how to rig it all together. And they were like, we don't even know if this thing's going to start, but we're going to fight for this championship. So they sent it down the track. They actually were on a great start on their run, but then once he tried to shift it, then the car died. So that worked in my favor, flew past him, got the win. And it was just, yes, the most suspenseful year you could ever imagine in drag racing. And so yeah, ended the year, ended my season with NHRA on top, winning the championship. And then what's cool is, like I said, my sister hopped in the cockpit. She drove my car, but it had the NTK Sensors branding on the side of it. She won 7 races that year and won the championship, and kind of carried on my legacy, I guess you could say. So yeah, it was just amazing. I loved the time that I had in Top Alcohol Dragster, but there's a lot of time and energy and travel that you have to commit to it. And and even being a race car driver, you've got to commit time to do interviews and go do media. So usually the day before a race starts, the drivers aren't at the track because they're out doing interviews all day with local stations and stuff like that. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it can take a toll on you. And it happened to me, happens to the best of us, but I'm, couldn't be happier with how my season went in the cockpit with the NHRA. And I have gotten back in the seat a few times since then to do some one-off races here and there. And it's been fun to kind of, scratch that itch a few times I get.
Sure. One of your mottos I noticed on your website is drop every fear. Explain what that means to you, and is that related somehow to, what you overcame as a female driver facing pushback from some of the rest of the community?
I think so. So it really came from a book, and I love reading books, especially like personal development ones. But the book is Fear is My Homeboy by Judy Holler. She's actually a speaker that I saw in person at a conference once, and I got her book and just absolutely loved it. Very motivational. And so for me, I'm very into fitness and hunting and mountain biking and a bunch of outdoor activities. And you really have to be in good physical shape for that. But also with racing, you do have to be in good physical shape, but also good mental shape. Mm-hmm. And I think that is, something that people don't, they don't exercise their minds as much as they should. Because especially with drag racing, a lot of it is mental. You have to be on your game. You have to get good reaction times, but you also have to know how to drive the car when something happens. You have to react very quickly and know exactly what to do. And so yeah, kind of going back to where I read a lot of personal development books, and that was one of them. And drop every fear was kind of something I came up with because you cannot have fear when you're driving a race car and you're going 280 miles per hour plus in 5 seconds. Like that's insane. But also, like you said, there is adversity outside of the cockpit as well, whether it's, with other racers or friends or family, anything like that. There can be fear, and there can be doubt, and there can be shame and guilt and all these other things. And especially when you lose a race and it's your fault. So like maybe if the driver disqualified, cut a red light, something like that. It is the worst feeling in the world to let down your team and disappoint them. And really having to work through that mental toughness of coming to the next race and forgetting all that ever happened and, really focusing that I'm going to be sharp on my times. This is exactly what I'm going to do. And all that type of stuff. So when I was driving, I would read every morning. I still read every morning, but I'd get up, I'd do a quick workout, and I would read a book that's just full of motivational quotes. So that way, for me, I can be in the best mindset possible. So that way I can do my job 100%. And I don't want to be one of those factors that could lose the race. And so I'm very passionate about that. But there could be a lot of fear with racing, but again, it's something that can be applied across the board to work or to education or to other sports and hobbies. And really, you've got to get those negative thoughts out of your head, whether it's fear or shame or guilt, and really focus on good beliefs and really trying to move the needle forward and not think about the mistakes you did in the past. Like we're not going to win every race. The chances are that are impossible. But really being able to get those beliefs that you can do the best you can, really telling yourself good things when you're going into a high pressure situation is going to make a huge difference on the track, especially as a driver.
Yeah. It sounds like wonderful advice for the rest of us as well, including all the members of the NGK Shop Squad who are shop owners and technicians who are struggling with new technology, customer relations, employee questions, and all those things. that seems like great advice. Do you ever get called on to offer guidance to normal Joes who are out there trying to get through the day as well?
Um, I don't, but I do like to post a lot of motivational and encouragement on social media. So another quote that I have is to be 1% better, and it's something that I share quite a bit on my social media, especially when it comes to fitness. For me, just trying to lift 1 pound heavier the next day, or run for 10 more seconds or something like that. So there's really not a specific like 1%, but for me, if I just wake up and I tell myself I'm going to be 1% better today than I was yesterday, it just puts you in that right mindset. So again, something that can be applied to any occupation, any sport out there. But one thing I think you'll see, especially on social media with a lot of drivers, is they do post quite a bit of motivational content, because not only is it helping them, but it might help others as well.
Well, Megan, it sounds like Randy Meyer Racing is going to have to really uh, step up next year to do 1% better than you've done this year. But I'm sure you can do it. And good luck to you. Good luck to your team. And thanks again for talking with us.
Thank you so much, Doug.